Hi, this is Martin, and in this particular episode, I'd like to cover a story about two brothers, Kelloggs. And this is from a book, a very beautiful book by Howard Markel, and it's entitled The Kelloggs, The Battling Brothers of Battle Creek. I just want to do an excerpt from this. This morning, millions of people devoured a bowl of Kellogg's cornflakes. Millions also started their day with a cornucopia of crunchy and frequently sugar-laden flaked, popped, puffed grains. While perusing the cereal box, peering over the bowl and gripping a spoonful of the stuff, few of these sleepy diners know that two men created those famously crispy golden flakes of corn. John Harvey and William Keith Kellogg were brothers from the Michigan hamlet of Battle Creek. Together, they introduced and mass-produced the concept of wellness, and in so doing, they changed how the world eats breakfast. John and Will began their ascent into the pantheon of American history by building the Battle Creek Sanitarium, a once world-famous medical center, spa, and grand hotel. For more than a half a century, the SAN attracted droves of people actively pursuing health and well-being. The brothers also developed a successful medical publishing house, an exercise machine, and electrical sunbath firm, cooking, medical, and nursing schools, an undergraduate college, and 3 other profitable health product companies. Yet, throughout these endeavors, and for most of their lives, the Kellogg's boys hated each other's guts. From the late 19th century to World War II, John, the elder by 8 years, was one of America's most beloved physicians. His books were worldwide bestsellers. The advice he dispersed in these volumes, lectures, and his magazine, Good Health, the oldest health magazine in the world, established in 1866, was followed by millions of people, including some of the most prominent celebrities of the day. In 1921, his life-saving research on digestion and diet was nominated for the Nobel Prize for Medicine. 11 years later, a 1932 poll ranked him second on a list of 25 important American luminaries and lauded him as the noblest man in the United States. Only Herbert Hoover ranked higher, a status that would dramatically change for the beleaguered president when the Depression came around. During this same period, Will became one of the world's most successful industrialists. In 1906, he founded the Battle Creek Toasted Cornflake Company, the original name of the Kellogg Company, which today enjoys more than $13 billion a year in net sales of breakfast cereals, snacks, and other manufactured foods in probably over 180 nations around the globe. With cunning and elan, Will Kellogg revolutionized the mass production of food, invested a fortune to advertise his wares to the public, and as a result made an even bigger fortune. When he was done amassing his wealth, he created the charitable means to give it away to those most in need of help and support. At the age of 46, this is in 1906, and after serving 22.5 years as the Battle Creek Sanitarium's business manager without official title, Will exploded out from under his brother's yoke, complaining that the doctor was a czar and a law unto himself, ignoring his associates and subordinates. Will decided he had had enough of being John's right hand. He was, however, docile enough to ask his older brother for permission to start up his own cornflake cereal company. John consented only after Will gave a sizable tribute of money and stock in the nascent firm. In return, the elder brother aggravated and harassed Will long after he was finally able to completely buy John out of the business. Undaunted, Will described the certainty with which he decided to strike out on his own. I sort of feel it in my bones. A mere 3 years later, Will's company was producing 120 cases of cornflakes a day. It was precisely when Will's business began to soar that John attempted to destroy his success by setting in motion a series of lawsuits lasting more than a decade. The doctor's antagonistic actions did more than just taunt or anger Will. John's nasty maneuvers forced Will to litigate all the way to the Michigan State Supreme Court over the issue of which brother held the claim over the greatest creation and the commercial rights to use the family name. John insisted he was the originator of Flakes cereal. He was. And the more widely known of the two, he was. Will just as forcefully argued that he was the Kellogg who perfected the recipe for cornflakes. And he did. Legally bought the doctor's rights to the cereal. He did. And because he so widely and effectively advertised the brand name of Kellogg in connection with the cereals, he and his company deserved the commercial rights to the family surname. In the end, he was right and won the litigation. The brothers, after the litigation, rarely spoke to each other, if they could possibly avoid it. And when they did, things often became bitter very fast. Their tempestuous relationship was a battle royal over primacy, credit, and respect. The Kellogg brothers shared so much and yet resented one another so deeply. Their beloved sister Emma described it best as she observed, "The Kellogg women are amenable, but the Kellogg men can be mean." Will was a major player in an entirely new industry centered on the transformation of foods from their natural state into cooked, shaped, mass-produced products. During his lifetime, his name appeared on billions of boxes of cornflakes, Rice Krispies, All Bran, Bran Crumbles, Pep, and similar products. After his death in 1951, his company successfully pushed glucose-loaded concoctions such as Kelloggs, Sugar Frosted Flakes, Sugar Smacks, Fruit Loops, Cocoa Krispies, Pop-Tarts, Frosted Mini Wheats, Apple Jacks, and later Eggo, frozen waffles, Special K, Nutri-Grain, breakfast bars, cookies, crackers, drinks, potato chips, veggie burgers, and a long list of other processed foods. Many of these food products are nutritious and convenient. Others played a role in fueling the current obesity epidemic among children and adults. Regardless of the precise ingredients filling the Kellogg Company's Horn of Plenty, Will's crunchy toasted green concoctions comprise the most consumed breakfasts in the history of humankind. By all measures, except for his own, Will's life considered a classic American success story. Sadly, no matter how much he achieved, Will could never squelch the relentless inner voice. It was a voice that tormented him with what would appear to objective observers as an absurd notion, the belief that he was nothing more than his older brother's lackey. John Harvey Kellogg often told the audience how he first conceived the idea of ready-to-eat breakfast cereals in 1875 while still an impoverished medical student at New York City's Bellevue Hospital's Medical College. Short on time to prepare a hot bowl of porridge, he began a search for palatable concoctions of wheat, oats, and corn for a fast, cheap, and nutritious meal. The result, some 20 years later, was the creation of flaked cereals. The story, of course, is much more complicated, and John required a great deal of help in the process. 2 decades later, his shy brother, Will, worked right beside him during many long nights in the kitchen seeking their culinary quest. They rolled out endless sheets of dough to find the precise configuration of ingredients, cookery, machinery, and toasting. John was so busy strutting his medical stuff that Will had to assume the time-consuming task of perfecting their cereal by mixing up batch after batch of failed attempts of flaking grain. Stewing in resentment, the younger brother labored for over 5 years before emerging with a bowl of cornflakes. John's bossiness, however, reflected more than dominance between a physical and staff member. There was a streak of cruelty that ran through their relationship and would ultimately pull their brotherly bonds apart. As children, John terrorized the smaller Will with stinging rebukes, mean-spirited practical jokes, tattling, and harsh beatings from which he never fully recovered. As adults, their conflicts ceased to be physical. Nevertheless, the psychological warfare continued. Relegating the Kellogg brothers' long warfare as a nasty sibling rivalry trivializes and obscures their epic drive, ambition, and genius. Each brother spurred the other on to greater heights, and many of their achievements were symbiotic, even if they were not always able to acknowledge the fact. Nor can their productive lives be explained merely as a contrary response to growing up in a religious culture predicting the imminent end of the world and fiery destruction of most of its inhabitants. Personal strife aside, John and Will Kellogg were magnificent showmen, resolute empire builders, and unwavering visionaries. Eccentric, perhaps, but just as their Michigan-reared peers Henry Ford and Thomas Edison ruled over vast realms of automobiles and electricity, the Kellogg brothers set forth a veritable fountain of fitness and in the process became industrial kings of health. And it all happened in Battle Creek. So that's a pretty interesting story that most people probably don't know. And I think oftentimes it's what the parents start out when they treat one sibling more favorably than the other. It unfortunately lasts pretty much for the rest of their lives. So I want to thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and farewell until the next time.